Welcome to the Afterspin, opinions from thought leaders in our state. I want to ask John Hood and Chris Fitzsimon, one of the big question marks in the 2018 elections involves whether or not Democrats can pick up 4 or more House seats or 6 or more seats in the Senate, thereby overcoming the supermajority in both houses. What do you see of the chances for this happening, and what will it mean if it does? Chris, I'll start with you.
Well, I'll answer them in reverse order. I think it's very significant if they are able to break the supermajority with a Democratic governor. It doesn't mean right now, for the most part, on all but a handful of things, if Governor Cooper vetoes legislation, the Republicans can have a session, which they do, 2 days later and override it without any problem. If the Democrats have them break the supermajority in the House, which is the veto majority, that becomes a lot harder, and I think Governor Cooper has a lot more power in terms of negotiating things before he even vetoes a bill. So I think it's very significant. As to the chances, I think I do think Democrats are going to make gains. Historically, they're going to make, I think nobody, I don't think, doesn't expect Democrats to gain seats in the legislature. The question is how many. I think most people believe they have a very good chance of breaking the supermajority in the House, not quite as good a chance in the Senate, although I don't think it's impossible. The Democrats have even talked about taking over the House. I think that would have to be a giant wave, the likes of which we haven't seen since 94, 2010, maybe even 2006. I think it's, right now we don't know. I think the Democrats, if they don't, however, break the supermajority in the House this year, will have only themselves to blame.
John, this has been a really quiet election cycle so far. There are a few pockets of some contested races, but we're not hearing a heck of a lot about it. Comment on whether or not you think they can break the supermajority in either house, and if so, what the repercussions would be.
The answer is, I agree with Chris about the fact the House is easier to break the supermajority of than the Senate. The House, they've got a reasonable chance. The Senate would be more of a long shot. One thing to think about, however, people are making all these assumptions about what happens if one or both of the chambers lose a supermajority, and therefore Cooper has all this power. If he has a veto, there might be a chance of not overriding it. However, remember that it also means that these sort of centrist Democrats or Democrats that are in competitive seats, and they would probably win several competitive seats if this scenario happened, they would now be under great pressure. Imagine that Governor Cooper vetoed the 2019 budget. You cannot assume every Democrat will uphold the veto, because Republicans would say, you mean you're going to be against, teacher pay raises, right, or something like that. So it does ratchet up the pressure. If you need a bipartisan majority to overturn a veto, it ratchets up the pressure. But it ratchets up the pressure not just on ours, but also on D's.
Other question, as far as it goes, assuming that one or both houses lose the supermajority, is there any indication that the Republicans and the Democrats in the legislature might play better together as a result of that, Chris?
I don't think so. I mean, I think John is right about it. It would mean that these sort of Democrats who might be more moderate or in the middle would have more pressure on them. I'm not so sure that that would be the case. I think if it happens, a lot of that would be behind the scenes, and to try to avoid this showdown, the governor might be able to work with the legislators behind the scenes. The other thing I meant to mention in the initial answer is the Civitas poll, which is hardly a liberal outfit, has had, depending on the month, has had Democrats with a 6 to 8 point advantage, sometimes in the generic ballot. Which, if that, and again, we're in August, if that is true in November, and I would be shocked if the Democrats did not break the supermajority in the House.
But we've seen the fallacy of some of these polls back in 2016, have we not, John?
Yeah, sometimes jurisdictions are not polled enough and the polls are misinterpreted, but in general, if the Democrats are leading, particularly in more than one poll, by a significant margin, you could bet that it's likely they're going to take the supermajority out in the House. They'd still be in the minority, but the supermajority would probably not stand in that scenario.
And the Civitas poll has been pretty accurate.
It has a pretty good track record. It absolutely does.
All right. Well, thanks for watching the Afterspin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.